You were discussing Oumuamua, is that how I
Yes,
say it?
that's the right.
Oumuamua, which is an object that we detected in space that you believe could possibly have been extraterrestrial.
What if Joe Rogan's casual talk about space suddenly crossed into something scientists can't explain? Oumuamua shocked astronomers in 2017, and now a new visitor, 3I Atlas, is raising even more unsettling questions. Joe has joked, debated, and speculated about alien technology on his podcast. But what happens when real evidence lines up a little too closely with science fiction? In this video, we'll explore Rogan's reaction to interstellar visitors, the strange science behind these objects, and why 3I Atlas might be the weirdest, and possibly most concerning, one yet. Rogan on Oumuamua and Atlas. When Joe Rogan first sat across from Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb to talk about Oumuamua, his reaction was a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Loeb explained how this interstellar object, discovered in 2017, didn't behave like anything astronomers had ever seen. Normally, comets shed gas and dust when they approach the sun, creating that iconic glowing tail. But Oumuamua showed no such behavior. It accelerated slightly as if pushed by something, but without the visible signs of outgassing. To Rogan, that detail was stunning. "So, you're saying this thing acted like a comet, but didn't look like a comet?" he asked, leaning into the mystery. Loeb calmly responded that the evidence was undeniable. Something other than gravity was at play, and the possibilities ranged from natural to, yes, artificial. Rogan's listeners love when the conversation takes a turn toward the unexplained. But he's always careful to add his own skepticism. He often describes himself as agnostic about extraterrestrial theories. He doesn't outright dismiss them, but he doesn't dive headfirst into every alien story either. Still, his fascination is obvious. Whenever military pilots talk about the Tic-Tac UFOs from the Nimitz encounter, or when controversial figures like Bob Lazar claim to have seen alien propulsion systems firsthand, Rogan can't resist exploring the details. "I don't know if I believe it," he'll admit, "but I want to believe it, and it's weird enough that I can't stop thinking about it." That mix of doubt and excitement is what makes Rogan's take so relatable. He doesn't claim to have the answers. Instead, he reacts the way most of us would, intrigued, skeptical, but open to being surprised. And when the topic of 3I Atlas came up, our third confirmed interstellar visitor, his tone shifted slightly. At first, he treated it like another bizarre space rock drifting through. But then he heard the numbers. This wasn't a small fragment like Oumuamua or Borisov. Early measurements suggest Atlas could be up to 46 kilometers across, 1,000,000 times more massive than Borisov. Suddenly, the room got quiet. "That's a city-sized object just flying through our neighborhood," Rogan remarked, and even he sounded unsettled. His audience picked up on the change immediately. Clips of that discussion went viral, not because Rogan cracked jokes, but because he didn't. Fans debated in comment sections and Reddit threads. Some shrugged it off, saying Rogan was overreacting to what was probably just a giant comet. Others pointed out that even astronomers admitted Atlas wasn't behaving the way it should. The lack of a classic tail, the odd CO2 cloud, the sheer improbability of finding something so big so soon after Oumuamua, these details fed into a bigger unease. For Rogan's fans, it wasn't just another alien conversation, it was one of those rare moments where Joe himself admitted, "Yeah, this feels different," and that's why this moment resonates. Rogan has built his platform on curiosity, humor, and a willingness to challenge mainstream narratives.
Imagine why anybody would be upset that it exists. Like, I wish it didn't exist. That's kind of hilarious.
But when he leans back in his chair, pauses, and admits something actually unnerves him, it hits harder than any punchline. His reaction is less about selling fear and more about acknowledging the strange truth. Sometimes, reality is weird enough on its own. What makes 3I Atlas so unnerving isn't just its size, it's the rules of physics it seems to bend. The object that shouldn't exist. When astronomers first measured 3I Atlas, the numbers didn't add up. Objects from interstellar space should be small, hard to detect, and statistically rare. Yet, here was something possibly up to 46 kilometers across, larger than some of Earth's most notorious asteroids. To put it in perspective, that's nearly 1 million times more massive than 2I Borisov, the previous interstellar comet. In astronomy, size matters, because bigger objects are exponentially less common. Discovering one this large so soon after detecting Oumuamua and Borisov should have been nearly impossible. And yet, Atlas is here. For scientists, this raises unsettling questions. Did we just get astronomically lucky, or is something about our assumptions wrong? The strangeness doesn't stop with its size. Images from the Hubble Space Telescope and the Spherex Observatory revealed something baffling. Most comets heat up near the sun and spew dust and water vapor into space, creating long, glowing tails. Atlas, on the other hand, doesn't seem to play by those rules. Instead of the familiar sweeping tail, it emits a faint but measurable glow, a cloud of carbon dioxide gas. No water vapor, no dust trail, just a fuzzy halo that seems almost symmetrical, as if the object is wrapped in its own invisible shroud. For researchers, that's not just odd, it's unprecedented. The lack of a water-driven tail suggests Atlas is unlike any comet we've ever studied, raising the possibility that its outer layers are made of something entirely different. This leads to the most controversial detail of all.
The 3I Atlas could be a nuclear-powered alien spacecraft.
Its trajectory. Avi Loeb, the Harvard astronomer who became famous for proposing that Oumuamua might have been artificial, noticed that Atlas's path is suspiciously neat. Instead of barreling through space on a random angle like most interstellar visitors, it seems to be aligned with the orbital plane of our solar system, the thin, flat disk where all the planets travel around the sun. Statistically, the odds of this happening by chance are about 1 in 500. That's the kind of coincidence that makes scientists pause. Is it truly random? Or could it have been nudged, aimed, or designed to intersect our system more directly than chance would allow? For Rogan and his audience, this is where the story takes a sharp turn from fascinating to unsettling.
These dust particles that threaten it would also be pushed by solar radiation pressure behind the object. We don't see that, so...
If Atlas were just a giant comet, its mass, glow, and path would still be worth studying. But combined, these traits make it stand out as something that shouldn't exist. It's as if the universe is breaking its own rules in plain sight. Some argue that the CO2 cloud could simply be the result of an unusual surface composition, but others point out that no known interstellar object has ever matched this behavior. And here's the part that gnaws at people's imaginations. What lies beneath the surface? If Atlas is shedding only a thin outer layer of carbon dioxide, then the vast bulk of its body remains a complete mystery. Is it rocky, icy, metallic, or is it something we can't yet categorize? Scientists will keep pointing telescopes at it, but until we get close-up images, possibly from Mars orbiters in 2025, we're left with speculation. If Atlas isn't behaving like a comet or asteroid, then what is it hiding beneath its surface? The theories that won't die. Ever since Oumuamua zipped through our solar system in 2017, the theories have never stopped. At first, scientists leaned toward the simple. Maybe it was just a weird asteroid or an unusually shaped comet. But the more data came in, the stranger it looked. Some researchers floated the idea of a giant hydrogen iceberg slowly evaporating, creating propulsion without leaving a visible trail. Others suggested it was a massive cosmic dust bunny, a loose, fluffy clump of particles pushed along by starlight. Each explanation tried to patch one hole, but opened another, leaving plenty of room for speculation. That's where Rogan thrives, asking the questions scientists often shy away from. If we don't know what it is, he once joked, how do we know it's not something built? Fast forward to 3I Atlas, and the mystery deepens. Scientists observing the object with Hubble and Spherex expected to see water vapor, the usual culprit behind comet tails. Instead, Atlas is releasing carbon dioxide, just CO2, and in modest amounts. No dust, no water, no bright streaming tail. That's bizarre, because by the time a comet this close to the sun starts to wake up, water ice should sublimate and dominate the process. Its absence puzzles even seasoned experts. If the glow isn't from water or dust, then what exactly is fueling it? Some argue that Atlas's surface may be coated in unusual ices or minerals we haven't seen before. Others think the CO2 might be masking something stranger beneath. This is where Rogan can't help but lean into the fun of speculation. On his podcast, he's entertained everything from stealth military tech to alien probes disguised as space rocks. When you hear that Atlas's trajectory lines up so neatly with the solar system's orbital plane, it almost begs for a science fiction explanation. What if it's not random at all? He mused. What if this thing is designed to come by and take a look? He'll laugh as he says it, but the seed is planted.
What is the ultimate thing that you could find? Another civilization or a piece of something from another civilization?
The same way he did with Tic Tac UFOs and Bob Lazar's claims. Rogan knows his audience doesn't necessarily need answers. They just want to ride the edge of what might be possible. For many listeners, the comparison is hard to ignore. If you were sending probes into another solar system, wouldn't you make them look natural? A chunk of rock or ice wouldn't raise suspicion, especially if it behaved almost like a comet. Add in a trajectory that seems too perfect, and suddenly the designed probe idea doesn't sound as far-fetched as it first did. Rogan is quick to acknowledge that scientists push back on these claims, but he also points out that the natural explanations so far are riddled with gaps. If the smartest people in the world are still scratching their heads, he says, then you can't blame the rest of us for wondering. And that's where the conversation gets darker. If Oumuamua and Atlas are part of a pattern, what does that mean? These aren't just random wanderers, they're visitors, and visitors imply intent. But there's a more chilling angle. What if interstellar visitors aren't random at all, but timed? Timelines that don't add up. For all its strangeness, what unsettles people most about 3i Atlas isn't just its mass or composition, it's its timing. Astronomers have already mapped out its path with surprising precision. On October the 3rd, 2025, Atlas will sweep past Mars, coming within about 29 million kilometers of the red planet. Just weeks later, on December 17th, it makes its closest approach to Earth roughly 223 million miles away. That's not a collision course, but close enough for powerful telescopes and even the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to get a good look. After that, it will slingshot outward, past Jupiter's orbit in early 2026, and then vanish back into interstellar space. In other words, Atlas comes in, makes its rounds and exits, almost like a pre-planned flyby mission. For Rogan, this pattern is hard to ignore. That sounds like a reconnaissance run, he joked, half laughing but clearly intrigued. Space rocks don't usually enter, glide through, and leave on such neatly charted trajectories. Of course, scientists stress that this is all just orbital mechanics. Gravity pulls, momentum carries, but the optics are still eerie. If you describe Atlas's path without the numbers, it sounds like the kind of maneuver you'd expect from a spacecraft built to gather data, dip close enough to observe, then disappear before anyone can get too close. Then there's the matter of coincidence. Before 2017, not a single interstellar object had ever been confirmed.
So in 2017, the reason I entered this subject, previously I worked on...
Then came Oumuamua, followed 2 years later by Borisov, and now Atlas, within the same decade. Statistically, this is almost absurd. Imagine going centuries without seeing a single interstellar traveler, and suddenly 3 show up in quick succession, 2 of them defying expectations in dramatic ways. Astronomers acknowledge this could mean our detection methods have improved, making it easier to spot what was always there. But the human brain doesn't work that way. To Rogan, and to many listeners, the more natural question is, why now? It's that why now that fuels the most chilling speculation. Rogan puts it bluntly, what if these aren't accidents? What if they're missions? The idea isn't that Atlas will crash into Earth, but that it might be here to observe, to scan, to pass a message without us even realizing. The flyby dates, close to Mars, then close to Earth, only add fuel to that fire. Why skim so close to planets at all if you're just a random rock? Why align so neatly with our orbital plane when thousands of other directions were possible? Scientists insist chance is enough to explain it, but Rogan's audience is less convinced, and here's where his tone changes. The laughter fades. The what-ifs hang heavier. Because if Atlas and Oumuamua are part of a pattern, if these visitors are timed rather than random, then we're not just looking at cosmic accidents. We're looking at something that behaves more like strategy. And strategy implies intelligence. Rogan lingers on that idea longer than usual. He admits it's easy to laugh at far-out theories when the stakes feel low, but it's different when the evidence comes wrapped in numbers and telescope images. It's different when the timing feels too sharp to be dismissed. Suddenly, the line between natural wonder and calculated intent begins to blur, and that blur is what unsettles him most. What if this is how first contact actually looks? Not with glowing ships in the sky, but with silent objects drifting close, watching from the dark. And here's where Rogan gets uneasy. The next one could involve us watching, in real time, as Atlas reveals what it really is. When science meets fear. Astronomers are quick to remind us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. When it comes to 3I Atlas, most lean toward natural explanations. A giant chunk of ice and rock shedding carbon dioxide. Unusual, but not impossible. A trajectory that seems aligned with the solar system's orbital plane.
An object that has come from beyond our solar system.
Strange, but statistically within the realm of chance. To the scientific community, speculation about alien probes is fascinating but unnecessary when physics can still account for most of the data. Yet here's the problem. The public doesn't live in equations and probabilities. They live in stories. And the story of Atlas feels different. That's why Rogan's discussions resonate. He doesn't claim aliens are behind every unexplained signal, but he also refuses to dismiss the what if. People don't tune in for certainty. They tune in for possibility. From UFO hearings in Congress to leaked military footage to the bizarre history of interstellar visitors, the cultural appetite for mystery has never been stronger. Atlas slips right into that space between science and speculation, where imagination thrives. And when even seasoned astronomers admit things are puzzling, Rogan seizes the opening. If the experts are scratching their heads, he says, why shouldn't the rest of us wonder? But Joe's biggest takeaway isn't fear of aliens, it's fear of ignorance. Time and again, he points out how little we actually know about these objects. Oumuamua appeared and was gone before telescopes could truly focus on it.
Astronomers looking through telescopes in Hawaii, a long, dark object was racing through our solar system.
Borisov behaved like a standard comet, but even that told us interstellar objects weren't once-in-a-century events. Now, Atlas shows up, dwarfing both in size, glowing in ways that don't match our playbook, and flying on a path that brushes past planets like waypoints. Rogan's concern isn't necessarily that it's alien, it's that something this massive could pass through our solar system and all we can do is watch. No probes launched, no intercepts, no way to peel back the mystery. We're basically standing in our driveway while something the size of a city cruises by, he muses. That realization unsettles him more than any alien theory. This sense of helplessness touches a nerve not just with Rogan, but with anyone paying attention. Humanity prides itself on exploration. We've landed robots on Mars, sent probes past Pluto, and built telescopes that can see to the edge of the universe. Yet, when a genuine interstellar visitor like Atlas arrives, we're left flat-footed. All we can do is observe from a distance and speculate. It's like being handed a locked safe from another star system and realizing we don't even have the tools to try opening it. Rogan often emphasizes this gap between our ambitions and our limits. To him, it's a reminder that the universe doesn't care about our curiosity. It will drop mysteries in our lap, whether we're ready to solve them or not. The bigger picture is sobering. If Atlas is natural, we've learned something profound. Interstellar objects are far more common than anyone believed. The space between stars may be teeming with rocks, comets, and fragments wandering endlessly, some of them enormous. That discovery alone reshapes how we think about the galaxy and about the risks of impacts here on Earth. But if Atlas isn't natural, if even a fraction of the speculation is true, then we're brushing up against an even larger reality, one where humanity isn't just a passive observer of random cosmic events, but a species being noticed, perhaps even studied. For Rogan, that possibility is both thrilling and unnerving. He thrives on asking hard questions, but in Atlas, he's found something that actually makes him pause. When science leaves gaps and mystery steps in, fear becomes part of the conversation, not horror movie fear, but the deeper unease of knowing we don't have control. Either way, Rogan admits, Atlas is the first time space has made him think twice. The universe just dropped another mystery at our doorstep, and even Rogan isn't laughing this one off. What do you think? Natural phenomenon or something designed? Drop your thoughts below, hit like if you enjoyed the ride, and subscribe for more deep dives. And while you're here, check out the next video on screen. You don't want to miss it.